To the September 9th, 2021 Planning Board meeting.
You should appoint Ray.
I'm going to. I'm going to appoint Ray a voting member, although I don't think we're going to have much to vote on, but Ray can be a voting member. We've got one thing on the agenda. It's to discuss zoning amendments, Airbnbs, wetland setbacks, and buffers, and any other proposed amendments. Craig's not here. He was working on wetland setbacks and buffers, so we're gonna forward that to another meeting. And we've got some people in the audience here that I assume are here to discuss the Airbnb portion of this amendment. So I printed up some copies of what I had drafted up before. You guys are welcome. I can get one.
Thank you, sir.
It's 100 pages.
Thank you.
Oops.
Front and back. Yeah, there's enough. You can have one too.
Place is crowded.
So as you may know, we're very early in the proposed zoning change schedule for the year. At this point, it's just talk. And I think it's great that some of our illustrious public came to speak about this as well. So I would like really to take this time to hear what they've got to say. And if, I'd like you to come up to the podium and state your name so that our minute taker knows who everybody is and kind of keep it under control. And I'll give you more than one shot. If you hear some things you want to come back up, that's fine.
Hi, I'm John Nikias. I've been here 40 years. I just didn't come in last week and try to change everything.
Mm-hmm.
The place next to me has had a couple different owners within the past few years. I brought forth to the board a septic design for a two-bedroom septic. I brought an ad saying it sleeps 8 people. The last time I was here at the meeting, we were talking, there were 6 cars there, 15 people. There were 7 cars there the next day, in the road. It's just getting outrageous. I don't think we should take it away from, somebody wants to help on their taxes a couple weeks a year, but people buy in these houses for business. They have no intention of living there, no resident there. They bought it for the sole purpose to rent it. That's a business. It's not a house. It's a business as far as I'm concerned. They don't stay in there more than a couple weeks, a couple times a year. It's rented out year round. The ads, the parking, it's on a private road, well, class 6 road, not a private road. There's times where you can't even get a car by them because they're parked in the road. They rent it year round. The winter's even worse. You find them diving in a snowbanking somewhere. You're putting a car in a snowbanking on the other side of the road to get by them. I think this business should be banned, not regulated, banned. If you're not gonna live there, move away for a couple weeks a year to rent it, help pay the taxes. That's a whole different story of business. A business shouldn't be allowed in a residential area. It should be right out banned. You can't do it. So that's my opinion on it. I just think they should shut them down and ban them. North Conway's taken them to court, right? They didn't win. It's still banned in North Conway, as far as I'm concerned. I think we should put a warrant article out there, spell it out, and there's a way you can word a warrant article where it can't be under advisement. It's a done deal. There's nothing the board can do about it. So if nobody wants to regulate these businesses in a residential area, I think that's the next step. And I think you guys know as well as I do, I can get 20 signatures before I hit the corner of the road for a warrant article on this. You just got to word it the right way. Can't word it so it goes under advisement for the board. You got to word it so it's shut down till another vote that opens it back up. I think it should be shut down 100%. Not regulated for a septic, not renting it for double what the septic capacity is, because you got these old places that they're renting. They don't have a septic design. So they can put a dozen people in there, as long as it's not a septic design, it says 4 people, they can do it, right? That's a question.
That's not my intention. It is to, if there's no septic design on file and they're using it as an Airbnb, they're gonna have to put a septic system in and have a septic design on file.
So that would be, that's the new, whatever you're providing, like the hotels have so many occupancy, and who would regulate that?
Well-
I don't even see it being able to be regulated.
No, it can be regulated. It can be enforced if we word it right, and that's what we're working on doing, is trying to get it put together right so that it's
Right.
enforceable. And I've had conversations with the fire chief. And he understands the problem too, and he's looking at it from a life safety issue,
Definitely.
which it is. And if we put the two together between a life safety issue and a health issue, then we can, and then it's a matter of how we put it together. And there's different, you brought up North Conway. What got shot down in North Conway, the voters didn't approve it at town meeting. But evidently, also what happens is the voters, at the same time, I'm not sure exactly how it happened, but they told the selectmen that they would like the selectmen to regulate it. And I'm not sure how that came about or how that happened, and the selectmen in North Conway are still at wit's end trying to figure out how to do that. But it's gonna be a permit process. And anything, I think you're under the misimpression that if something goes into zoning, it can't be reviewed. Anything, any town official makes regarding development rights is subject to appeal to the ZBA for just a variance.
Right.
And a variance could be asked for anything in the zoning, anything at all in zoning, someone could ask for a variance for. So, things, no matter how you word it, you cannot prevent that. That's against the law. And the town is rural enough, and there's enough different, we've got some areas with mountain views, we've got some areas with waterfront, we've got some old farms, and I don't want to create an ordinance that prevents those people with unique characteristics of their land or their buildings or whatever to be able to do short-term rentals.
I don't think you guys have the total picture.
No,
You don't have
I understand.
20 people standing
No,
on a dock
I do understand that total
15
picture.
feet away from my bedroom.
I understand it.
There's days where I can't even go outside, I won't pass a drug test the next day.
I'm
You know,
not surprised.
This is outrageous,
Yeah.
and just to let them do it is just,
But they're not, well, we're trying to come up with something that reduces the number of people that can be there, period. And we need to make it enforceable so that when
Right.
you see 20 people out there, you can call the police and they can come and tell 15 of them to go away.
But that isn't true, because we had that same issue. Our person was told they were not allowed to have it listed as a commercial venue. And they were shut down, they were sent a violation letter, and they were told they were gonna be fined $275 a day.
But that was a different type of it. They were doing
No,
something.
But just excuse me for 1 second though, he did keep one of his venues that he was supposed to cancel. And there was at least 15 cars down there, to the point that they were parking up on our property. We did call the police, and the police said it's private property, that we have to deal with that. So
That's because we haven't, right now, the town, we don't have the mechanism in place for the police to address that, which is what we're trying to do.
I thought at the last meeting, it spelled it right out.
But there's nothing in place right now.
I thought it was already there. It was already there at the last meeting, they can't park on the side of the roads.
It's only, well,
It was there, it's in.
The parking, they can force.
if the police were,
we were told that we had to
yeah,
have it towed.
the police were right. If it's on private property, they're not allowed to tow it off private property. If you're the owner of the property, you can say, stand by, I'd like you to stand by here, and I'll call a wrecker, and have them tow it at your discretion. it's on your property, you can order the tow. Police can't tow off private property, and that's
If
statutory.
they're blocking the road, if they're in the road,
If they're in the road, or they're blocking access, and they can do that. If they're blocking that road, they call the police, and if they say not anything, you call the fire department, and the fire department will put pressure on them, because you gotta get an emergency vehicle through there. If they can't get a truck through there, ambulance, fire truck, whatever, then
How
it
do-
has to be cleared, and that's,
They wouldn't be able to get a fire
yeah,
truck.
so,
In both these scenarios, they're private roads.
no, it's a town road,
Class
class
six.
6.
That's a town road?
Yes,
The
East Shore
town
Drive is,
maintains that road.
No, it's town-owned, not town-owned.
Non-taint-
it's not maintained,
but
but
it still has to be kept open.
but it still has to get kept open. It's town road, it's a town right away, but we don't
It's just-
maintain it.
It's getting really frustrated, where you have these people all week long. You have somebody that lives there, they're not gonna have 20 people over all week.
So,
Get these
If we're in the
people
road,
in and
we
out.
should have
yeah,
had them
It's
towed.
just,
yeah, but
If I have to start
for,
calling the
like,
cops every time I smell a
Airbnbs,
joint or
since
something,
it
I will.
talks about residential.
every time there's a wheel on the road, I will.
Single
If that's,
family and
if
two
that's what it's
family,
gonna
how many
be.
spaces
I
you have to
did,
have.
I
wouldn't
physically
an
brought
Ordinance for
the
Airbnb.
the information to
Hang
the
on.
town.
Yep,
You
yep.
guys are hearing a conversation, so is he.
I physically brought the information to the town. I brought a septic design, and I brought the ad. Was anything ever addressed to that?
It's been forwarded
That
to
fell under code enforcement, right?
Which is me.
yeah.
Right, and I haven't had a chance to,
That
or the
was-
selectmen.
That was a month ago.
Oh, the sel-
Well,
And they
I
haven't
just-
appointed the selectmen, and
No, I've
and we're
asked
fault-
you guys
we're
to
at
give
fault so
some-
that the board
yeah.
hasn't appointed one of us to go take a look at it, which,
Well, it's on paper. It's a septic
no,
design.
but I'm saying, the
It's
thing
an
is there's
It's-
no,
it's-
lack of a code enforcement officer, the duty falls
I
to
think
the
his
selectmen.
point is, and it's become rampant here.
Yeah,
They
Oh,
know
yeah.
it.
they know it, the
No,
only
there's no
other,
code
the
enforcement,
only other thing
and
they
it's
call is
going crazy.
DES, and DES can
Well,
enforce it because it's a violation of
even
the section,
DES
but they're not willing to do a lot.
DES is one code enforcement officer for the whole
Exactly.
state.
Yeah,
Was anything sent to the police department stating that they had to respond to these with the cars in the road? That was supposed to be
Not
done
with
too.
yours, but the one she's talking about,
that
they were
was-
carbon copied on the letter.
Because that was supposed to be done
Yep.
too, right? You guys gonna send a letter to the police department stating that if I called, they had to come?
well, they're supposed to if they
They're
call.
supposed to
I
go
mean,
anyway.
it was,
I didn't know
you
it
brought it
was-
for this board, it has to
No.
go through the board of selectmen and the other.
Well, I know,
councils.
but
It had
I
to go
don't
through
know
the
that
letter had to go
we
from the
have to
board of
get it.
selectmen to the police chief saying had to
Yep.
respond to vehicles in the road.
That's right.
I don't understand why I have to call, I mean, I know it was said, but I don't know why we should have to tell him that
Every
he's gotta
time, well,
call when the vehicles are in the way.
So
That's,
if-
that's,
If I call and they don't come, I come back to a selectmen's meeting?
yes.
It's happened on that road before. They've told a guy down the end of the road, somebody's parked in his driveway, he couldn't park, they told him.
Well, if it's parked in
bad.
somebody's driveway, again,
Well,
that's
it's not a
private
driveway, it's the
property.
side of the road.
But if
was-
it's
it was
parked
on
out
the
in the-
road.
if it's
I
parked
think you
out
have
in
to
the
be-
right of way.
You have to be crystal clear when you call the police to say they're parked in the road, blocking the road.
Can't get through.
No, if you say they're parked in blocking my driveway, the police, they're in your driveway, that's, they say,
they don't have permission to be in his driveway.
But still, it's private property. He has
has
to
to
call
call?
the tow.
It's just-
What you should
it's
do
just
is
so
turn
con-
around-
It's so confusing, that's all.
Yes.
Like,
The
you're
thing to
gonna
do-
change these zoning, Vince, like I was saying last time. I don't understand half the stuff when you put the zoning changes out. I don't think anybody really does. Other than, the board that wrote it, you write these things and
Even then, we don't sometimes understand them all. Some
I
of
just
them.
flip a coin, what do I think it is, and vote that way, but nobody understands what that actually means, it's just, no, I don't think so, it could be just me, I read it and I can't, but that's just, it's getting really frustrating, that's all I'm saying, and I think something's gotta be done. And the town has the proof that it's
and,
in
and,
violation right now, the septic design and the rental contract, they have the proof, the
You
town.
know, and it's,
and we're working, I mean, as the planning board, that situation that you're talking about is not our, I don't wanna pass I hate to sound like I'm passing the buck.
Yeah.
But it's not our jurisdiction. It's zoning, it's the code enforcement officer, which is not us.
And that gets directed by the selectmen?
Yes.
Because I was told not to come to selectmen, I was told to come to planning board on this.
No, we're working on how to address it we're working on revising the code so that it gives the code enforcement officer more teeth to enforce it, and it gives police more teeth to enforce it. And we're trying to make it so it's more enforceable across the board, so that it doesn't fall through the cracks.
Okay, well, So,
It's,
And that's what our job is.
it's,
so I
it's
take a
also,
grade stake, I put a ribbon on it, I stick it in the property boundaries, and anytime there's a car outboard of that, the police will have it towed?
yep.
Okay, thank you.
The other thing too is that, to follow up on Bruce, you know, it's a residential area. It's not zoned for a business. But the problem is that we have to get something with a little more teeth in it and clarify some of the ordinances that's saying, no, you can't run a commercial business in a residential area. And that's what the guy's doing. He's got a 20 bunkhouse, and he's got, you know, another 10 place bunkhouse, and he's renting it out. No, he's not a hotel, it's not set up for that, and he doesn't have the septic, so, but at this point, we don't really have a lot of teeth in what we've got for ordinances, and that's what part of this is. So we could clarify at Airbnb, and going further, you know, I look at it this way, you don't want to restrict it to the point where the Joneses lived there all summer, and now they're getting older. So they decide to be snowbirds and head south to Florida. Geez, we'd like to rent our house to have somebody in it for the winter. So if something goes wrong, we know we can find a nice person to rent it for part of the, whether it be someone that's in business, that's, you know, up here for some company, or whether they're in school or whatever. We don't want to restrict people like that either.
No, I agree 100%.
So, but if
with
you're
that.
saying you're not gonna do it at all, then that means you can't rent their
Talking
house.
Short-term rental, daily rentals. I
Yeah.
think there's a difference between daily rentals and somebody's
Well,
gonna.
you can get an
rent for-
Airbnb that's a week or 2 week rental.
Yeah, so you pick it, right?
What you
Yes.
think,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, so-
I think that's recreational more
Yeah.
than the
You don't
6-month person that rents your house to
House.
keep it
Right,
So-
occupied.
We wanna make sure we don't restrict
It
it too
stinks for
fine.
somebody, like you say, just trying to rent it out for a couple weeks a year to help pay the taxes, you know? Versus somebody that bought a property just to rent it. I think it's two different things, but that's
Yeah, it is,
just me.
but we have to come up with
We have to make
where
sure
that
we
line is,
clarify
and we
that.
have to be very careful in how we separate those two.
If we don't,
Oh,
then it's all for naught.
Somebody's gonna figure out a loophole, and they're gonna do what they wanna do anyway.
right.
So it's,
Okay.
yeah, we're trying to take all your comments in mind, keep it in mind while we're doing this,
Right.
because we care what you have to say.
And I know
This
that,
is just the
like,
beginning.
yeah, and it's tough for the Board of Selectmen. We don't have a code enforcement officer right now, we're lacking one.
Really?
We've got a new building inspector, but not a code enforcement officer. He will eventually probably pick up on some of that, but at this point, he's got his hands full just doing
He
buildings.
doesn't have enough hours
He
to do
doesn't
the
have
building
hours to do it.
inspections.
And they didn't get.
Because it's
didn't-
part-time.
Yeah, didn't get
Voting
voted in.
Didn't allow full-time. So here we are.
What's the code enforcement in the budget for? Is that part-time also?
Well, it's full, it was.
It was
well, depends.
full-time.
It was full-time.
Yeah.
And we made some changes,
So right now.
and then we tried to get the building inspector code enforcement back full-time. Bill talked about it at the last meeting,
And it got shut down.
and the town said no, so I can't have a full-timer at the moment.
That's
No
strange,
means
you know,
no, that's the
it's-
state.
But here, and the thing is it falls back now, any code enforcement stuff falls back onto us, meaning us, I mean, myself and the other 4 members of the Board of Selectmen.
So,
And one of us has to get, you know, we've had talks about it, a couple of the members are gonna go out and check one facility, and now,
it's strange though.
but
that
we
you-
have to
the
pick
money's-
somebody to go do this.
Strange, the money's set aside for code enforcement and you can't get one, that's just.
Right.
Seems.
Well, they voted on it, and no means no,
That
Right.
seems strange. Okay,
by
well,
law, so.
Yeah, just like anything, you can't go buy something after they said no, you know.
so should I make an appearance at the selectmen's meeting then, or do the selectmen
I would.
look
Yep.
at the planning board minutes at all?
Oh,
or- I
yeah,
don't-
we
I
do.
don't know.
Well, I'm the representative to the planning board from
I
the
would
Board of
say
Selectmen,
yes.
so yes, we discussed that, but if you wanna come in, then call Naomi, get put on the agenda and come in.
Or he
Speak to
can
us.
go to public comment.
I'll go
He
to
doesn't
public
have to.
comment.
Like I said, I don't wanna beat a horse.
Well,
to death.
no, you're not, and we understand, and I mean, this has been a ongoing issue for a couple of years. I mean, we know that there's been, was it 2 years ago, somebody had, oh yeah, come up and go camping, and they had, you know, tent sites
You
or
still
something.
have that.
And we still have that, and we've been, tried to address that, and that's,
They don't bother anybody, they're up in the woods.
but still, it's the same thing.
It's got
They walked in, right?
20-something acres,
Yeah.
they don't really.
Yeah. It's not
You
like,
never even know.
it's
But they're running the
different.
business there.
They're
But
there.
it's, I know what he's saying, it's
Yeah.
different than 20 people at the,
Standing
6
on the
feet from his
dock,
bedroom
smoking
window,
dope, you know,
right.
I understand, yeah, it's, you know, but still, it's the same,
Same principle.
yeah, same principle,
That's why we have to be careful in how we word it.
yeah.
Okay, well, thank you for
But
your
I
time.
would make one comment to what was said in, because I've run into some problems on, if you put stakes in the ground, there are some posting requirements before you should have a car towed. I've run into some issues, like if you put private property or whatever, you're probably okay, but if you just put stakes, private
All you have-
and you call the police and have it towed, you'll probably be in more trouble than they
All you
are.
have to do is point to the steel markers that are right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
they're-
you
they're
have,
visible.
there are, I've run into this issue where
But
there's
if the
some
person
posting
parks in your
requirements.
driveway and you're not your guest or authorized to park there, you can tow the thing
That
out.
was last year, 11 o'clock at night, the driveway next door wasn't plowed, headlights straight in the bedroom, 2 cars. And I went up there and told them to move, and they were insulted, I told them to move. 11 o'clock at night, straight in, because I'm on a hill, the headlights went straight in the bedroom. That's what, we're dealing with inconsiderate people, that's all,
Mhm.
that's the only thing you can say. But thank you for your time, I appreciate it.
Thank you,
Okay.
John.
Welcome.
Yep, come to the board and,
Very communicative. So who voted no for the code enforcement?
the town did.
The town-wide.
Town meeting.
It was a town.
Town meeting at the vote.
No.
They voted no at the town meeting, went to the vote, and it got turned down.
So how does that get brought back up?
Next year,
Next year, you have to bring it back up again and vote on it next year.
in March.
So the town voted during,
They voted not to have full-time,
Yep.
so that's why we have 25 hours.
With regards to this, I also wanted you guys to maybe
Yeah, could you
consider,
State your name, please.
oh, my name is Jackie Pratt. I would like you to also address if someone has an easement on your property. That's our situation, is the gentleman down below has an easement, so we have to supply him a way to his property. So it's our property, but he's allowed to go down our driveway. It's a shared driveway. It's technically not shared, but he's allowed an easement. According to the law that I've read up on, you're not allowed to make money off an easement. So because I have the driveway and I supply him an easement, I'm not allowed, if there was a fair in town or something, to allow people to park there and make money off it. I feel the same should apply to him. He's making money off his property to rent it. When I have to maintain it, I have to do the wear and tear on it.
So
It's constant for me.
So it's private easement for him to egress and ingress out of his property.
Absolutely.
And his guest,
Absolutely.
and,
And
but
I-
not, but he, and you think there's language somewhere that he's not allowed to profit off it?
right. We do have a property lawyer, so I'm going to have him look into that.
Okay,
But our problem also is the fact that, which I think I might have come up with a solution with this whole permit thing. We had to file a complaint with DES on him because he blamed us for his water issues. We're not his water issues, he's overdeveloped on his property. But because he threatened it and videotaped our shared driveway, our driveway, blaming us in front of his irrigation person that we were responsible for his water problems and why he had to have irrigation done. When we looked into DES, we also looked into the town and got the permits all together and realized that he had decided for rental reasons to switch this barn that he was building from facing this way to having full lake water views. And in doing that, he overdeveloped his parking. And it wasn't caught with the town. They gave him a permit, which he was supposed to go back to DES and have them sign off on it. He never did. He just went ahead and built it, asked forgiveness later. So now we're dealing with the after effects of this because there's absolutely no place for anybody to turn around down there. There's no room. And it's been so bad that we've had to put up signs at the end of our driveway because people were, Amazon's parking there to walk down to his place. Because otherwise, they've got to back up big trucks.
can't turn around.
No. Nope. And it's only going to get worse if DES makes him bring things back to the natural state, which he's going to have to do. He's way over the 28%.
I gotta add one thing too. He can't turn around because he hasn't parked the vehicle in that garage since it's been up and closed.
And my fear is because he's still going to try to use it as a loophole to do venues in there. I don't understand why he hasn't parked a single car in a 3-stall garage. barn. And my fear also is, because, you know, it would be nice if people do follow the rules. I don't have a problem with people Airbnb, and I truly don't. But it's people like him. He has a bunkhouse that is listed as storage, but on the site that we had shut down for his venue, he listed it sleeping six. It's got 3 queen beds in it. It's got a powder room and an outdoor shower. He also has a camper. He also has a 2-bedroom home that he listed on there as a 4-bedroom home. I've been in it, there are 4 bedrooms. Again, you put some futons in there, you can, so on his venue that I gave to the town, he says he can sleep almost 16 people in the house, another 6 in the bunkhouse. So how many people are we talking here? On the original one, which I didn't get a copy of because he took the wording out, the verbiage out, but he said he could fit 12 to 15 mid-sized vehicles down there. There's absolutely no way. But I did take pictures, and I sent it to DES, and I sent it to the town, where he had a family party for 4th of July, and there were 10 cars, and they were all parked pretty much almost in our backyard. It was right against his barn, because he had developed that whole area, dirt, gravel, and then threw mulch on top of it. And that was his parking. That's where everything was parked. That's where he was putting his trailers, his cars, everything. Until DES sent him a letter that they were coming out. All of a sudden, the week before that, hasn't been anything parked there since. So he's lost that whole strip for parking. He has maybe 4 viable spots. In between the house and the barn is a tough area to park. And according to the plans that you guys allowed, he said he's using that for parking, but according to his DES permit, can't. So,
And this is, if this is the property I'm thinking of, this is on a 2-bedroom septic design.
yes. But again, everybody, we came here to the last meeting, everyone's like, oh, that can't happen here. Well, it did. It did happen here. But I was thinking, as far as a permit, before the town issues the permit, when he had changed the direction of the barn, they should have gave a permit pending. So it isn't a legit permit. It's pending that he goes back to DES and gets them to sign off on it. He has to bring that back, and then that way the communication's going between the two, so that this doesn't happen, because now it's been, just like I said, it's an enormous headache for us. They're not gonna make him tear the thing down, but there's no way he's gonna possibly be able to use it. But my fear is that he's leaving it open to host venues and put tables inside it. And then he went again and got a permit, says he's gonna have 2 offices and gym. He also has a half bath downstairs and a full bath upstairs in this barn on a 2 septic. And don't tell me that's not gonna be rented out. Of course it is. It says office, so again, not doing anything wrong, but it's gonna be my word against anyone else's that someone's living up there. But I mean, I can see it in my living room because it's right on top of me. It's like someone built a house in between our 2 houses. So I don't know how you address something like that. Like I said, there's other people on the street that have Airbnbs. I don't have a problem with it if they go by this. And some suggestions is maybe you have, not a merit system, but 3 strikes, you're out. I also think that there should be a list with the town of everybody who is Airbnb, and phone numbers, and emergency phone numbers. So if someone like him calls the police have a number immediately, because half these people don't live here, and they're not on their property site like they say that they are.
That's a good idea, though, is have a database
Register.
of anybody that gets,
I mean, they should
Some places
register.
And then
with
I
the town.
also think that there should be a 3-strike, you're out system. You can't Airbnb anymore. You're shut down. If he
Conway do
calls 3 times, and I'm not saying that it's going to allow us to just call because we want them shut down.
Right.
If it's a legit call, if they're loud until 1 o'clock in the morning and someone calls the police and complains, strike 1. The police will notify you guys, hey, is this an Airbnb? Or you guys communicate with the police. This is a list of all the Airbnbs. This is, okay, that's property, that's strike 1. And fire department couldn't get down there, that's strike 2. Oh, they've got 20 cars down there and they don't have the parking for it, strike 3. They
I
can't,
think Conway started, they gave him 4 chances, the 4th one you were done. But it's Conway, I read some of their short-term rental committee, And they had some suggested violations and suggested steps, like she just said.
And also, before the steps even happen, before you even hit a violation, to stop that, why don't you have a fine set up?
Yeah,
If
theirs
if the
had some-
parking is over, you're immediately fined.
Yeah.
People don't like to fork out the money. They're trying to make money. They don't want to fork it out. So, like you sent, when the letter was sent to him, the $275, I mean, technically, he hosted a venue after he was told he wasn't supposed to. My calculation, he owes you 17 grand. There's your code guy. But nobody's going to enforce that. I don't have anybody I could call for that. I knew what it was because he had already explained before when we went down to talk to him nice, before I even wanted to report him, because I was trying to be neighborly. I knew that this event was already in the books, and he went ahead and hosted it. It created a problem because, again, tried to squeeze 16 cars down there. There was no place for anyone to turn around except for my driveway, and there was no place for anybody to park because there is no parking down there. He probably has enough room for maybe 4 vehicles, and he's got a boat, a trailer, 2 trailers, a camper, 2 vehicles, and nothing's in the barn. So what am I as, like I said, I don't care if someone Airbnbs, but this is just his loophole. He's already, 2 weeks after you shut him down, he hung up a new sign, weekly rentals.
No, I mean, we had that conversation, I wrote a letter, she's right. But it's tough to,
We had
I
to
know
hire,
he's on a stop work order,
yeah, that worked out
and-
real well.
yeah, and DES, I mean,
And then it puts me in a, you know, I don't like to be that person because I don't want to be on there. But anyway, I explained to you that I'm not dealing with that. I'm not having somebody verbally accost me in my driveway. His worker backed up intentionally into my driveway as I'm standing there asking him. I said, excuse me, did it on purpose, just to be a jerk. I'm not going to deal with that, and this is what is going to end up happening. You know, you try to be civil, you try to be open and lenient to it, and like I said, I just think that if you're going to do it, which it sounds like you said we have to, then get a list with the town, get a list of everybody, and then if they're delinquent with it, shut them down. I mean, and just be right on top of it, that you're going to fine them, and stick to it. But you're short-staffed, I don't know how that will happen.
Correct.
And I don't think it's fair that I should have to sell my home like the last person did that lived there because they can't deal with stuff like this. It's you know, I'm abiding by all the laws. I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm not trying to hurt anybody or harm anybody. I just want peace and quiet. That's what I moved out there for. If I wanted to sit on my deck and look at a parking lot, I would have just moved into Manchester. I moved out here for that very reason, to get away from that. I mean, I've been there 5 years. I have never called the police on anybody. I don't do that, but it's out of control. I am constantly, like I said, I don't know what you do with easements, and there's a lot of properties in the Northeast that deal with easements and right-of-ways. That is gonna have to be a topic of conversation, because what if somebody leaves there drunk and backs up and gets, hits a tree on my property, or gets hurt on my property, or does something, am I responsible for that?
Well, that's an easement, which you enter in a contract with somebody, that's more of a.
It's not on it.
It's not, it
No.
doesn't come within the purview of the
I don't know
town
that
so
it's
much,
a-
it comes under more of as a civil thing with your own attorneys and the covenant.
but can you take away the easement?
No, I don't know if we can.
No.
That's if it's on a deed, no.
And
No.
That's
Another
deeded
thing that I
easement.
didn't really,
This one isn't, it's not.
I didn't,
Was, is it
It's an old paper.
yeah, it's an old paper.
easement
Yeah.
over our property.
still one of those things you'd have to go through an attorney, it wouldn't be within our venue to do it. so.
And we are.
Yeah.
And also, I noticed on the last minutes that they said that, if someone's doing something illegal, then it should be up to the property owner to hire a lawyer. I get it, I don't agree with that, because I'm paying my taxes just like he is. I'm not breaking the laws, he is, but I have to pay for an attorney, which
This-
we're doing, to fight all of this.
Certain laws are enforceable by the police, or we have a code enforcement officer, they can be, but we don't have one. So, I mean, at this point, it doesn't mean we won't have one at some point. It falls to the responsibility, like I said, to the Board of Selectmen. But certain other ones are considered what they call civil, which has to be done through the legal process with attorneys, not through, and that's if you have a dispute with your neighbor, you know, over like the easement, or you have this and that, you know, use a writing, it can be considered a contract. So that's up to the courts to decide, not us, not the Board of Selectmen, and not the police.
See,
It has to go through an attorney.
But our easement isn't the issue. It's him running a business down there.
Well,
And he has
we-
3
we
separate
underst-
properties
we
that are
understand.
considered renting.
We
I
understand
feel that's
that.
a business, the same as
And-
the venue.
And I agree with you, but we don't have, at times, the people to enforce it. And I'll make a pitch for it now, because we're getting into that, close to that time of year. So come the first of the year, when it comes time to vote, you know, then come down and look at it and say, yes, we want to have a full-time code enforcement officer, so this can be dealt with, because nobody has, you know, you can't expect, the gentleman we have is the building inspector right now. He can do that at some point, but he's only here 25 hours a week. And he's up to his eyeballs with just new and existing ongoing construction.
Right.
That's his biggest thing. So to try and do some of this other stuff is almost impossible for him. So it falls to the Board of Selectmen. Well, there's the 5 of us wise men, and we also have other things in the work. I work, you know, I'm working. If I have time, I would go out and do some of it, but we have to have a meeting and decide which one of us is gonna go out and do some of this. Two of the members are supposed to look at another issue. And then it's, one of the board members is, you know, we're all employed, so it's tough. You can only do it either late at night or maybe on a weekend, and I work a weird schedule, but I'd be more than happy to go look at some of this and take photographs, and then we could do something. But at this point, you know, we have to have the board meeting to say, okay, you can go out and do this. We
Well-
can't just take it upon ourselves as individual members to do this.
I guess just take it into consideration. I personally consider if 1 house on the property is a rental, 3 is a business. And he has 3
question
that
about
he's
it.
looking to rent.
And I don't disagree.
And the sign is plural, rentals.
Yeah, and
It's
the
like
thing
he's
is,
advertising it
it's
in your
also
face.
zoned for
Residential.
residential, not for
not
residential
a
business,
business.
so it's a violation of the zoning ordinance also.
And he's already been sent a letter about that, so I'm not understanding why it's allowed to even have the second
We
sign
don't
up
have-
right now.
We don't have that code, that's the trick, the whole catch-22 to this is a code enforcement officer who can go out and go, he's like the cop that does that, he's gonna go out and go bang.
But there wasn't a code enforcement officer that sent him the letter the first time when he set it up as a business.
A lawyer sent a
Yeah.
letter to the town.
And we don't have the code enforcement officer anymore. They're
But
gone.
there wasn't one when the letter was sent to
Oh.
him. I feel like he's just double violated
I sent
himself.
the letter.
She sent
Yeah.
the letter.
But he turned around and just reopened
the
it. He
board.
just did the back
Oh,
door.
yeah, he just, I mean, it's.
Changed the name, but
It's
it's
like a
still
lot
the
of these,
same.
it's, you know, in the city, they call it the 3-card Monte, you know.
Ask for forgiveness, not permission.
Yeah, and that's the other, some of them have that attitude, you know, it's easier to ask for forgiveness than ask for permission.
See,
And I don't disagree with you. I
Can
mean,
you-
it's frustrating on our end also.
Is it zoning that requires the registration of these things? Or is it,
You can
the
pass.
selectmen can create an ordinance without going to town meeting?
and that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That is the way that may be better to do it.
because we create an ordinance. Let's
And
look
I
at what,
also-
we gotta look at what other venues have done, see if they've been tried and true, so to speak, in the legal system, and go through our attorney, and then maybe we
And
can
the other
pass
thing I'm
them.
thinking is, as part of the ordinance, it may be possible to come up with a fine system
Yep, which we can do. We
that would
voted
just
on that
be
before.
almost like automatic. They wouldn't have to go to the code enforcement officer or anything. It was if you get, if fire or police or anybody goes out and sees this, you get automatic fines, like get a ticket.
Any official of the town sees
Yeah.
it, they can get it, yeah.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying, just do the fine or the 3-point system. I
Once they
think you
start
should
paying
have a
fi-
list
once they
of
start
people
paying
who are,
fines weekly, they'll change.
money usually stops a lot of
Other
people.
people hear about it.
And, well, and
Right.
the other thing is we gotta make sure you add something into the mix, that if they refuse to pay the fine, because some of them will just thumb their nose at it, then,
Yeah, but
okay.
it's a town, you put a lien on the property
Then
then.
you end up, yeah, you take them, you file a petition in the court, district court, and have them go in there and pay the court fees, and if not, put a lien on the property.
And also, like, if you're going to do the Airbnb, I don't know if this is just an idea as well, that maybe you should have either the fire department or the police department or someone go down there and feel like they can comfortably, if someone's saying that they have room for 4 cars, or,
Well,
because they should have to
that's gonna be
say
part
4
of-
cars,
That's
that's
gonna be part
it.
of the
Right.
annual certificate for the Airbnbs.
Yeah.
It's gonna be, the fire chief wants to be able to do a life safety
Inspection.
inspection.
They would fail.
Before they're allowed to do it. And then on the annual renewal, he gets to review it. And if he hears or thinks something happened, he can obviously get out and look at it again.
Or deny it.
And that would be for, if part of life safety, make sure they have enough parking spaces so the cars are off the road. Because if they're blocking the road, it's a life safety issue. That,
Would this be like everything else, when the permits issued, the abutters have a chance to voice
Can be
their
done
opinion?
also.
No, I think what he's saying is when the building permit was issued,
No, when you're gonna do this.
If you're gonna run a business.
Thing,
Yeah.
you're gonna notify the police, the fire, shouldn't you have a meeting with the abutters of the
Well,
property?
Or notify them.
it's not gonna be this kind of a meeting. It's gonna be fill out an application and then the fire, police and health officer review it kind of thing.
So it's already done deal.
No,
Necessarily.
Review it.
it still has to go under their
So
review.
the abutters have no say.
There'll be the problem with that, any building permit, any permit that's issued by the town, the abutters have a 30-day appeal period. The problem is, and it's a statewide problem, it's not just Ware, is there's no notification process.
No, we were never notified.
No, and there isn't. In any, if someone applies for a building permit, there's no requirement to notify abutters anywhere in the state of New Hampshire. If someone goes to apply for a septic system permit, there's no required that any abutters be notified anywhere in the state of New Hampshire. It's not a notifiable,
So
and
would
and
it,
I can understand both sides of the coin, because I design septic systems, I've installed them, I've built houses, I mean, I can understand both, but the abutters have a 30-day appeal period, but the abutter has to be aware enough to know to look, because no one's gonna knock on their door and say, hey, look, this is happening.
if it's a significant change of use, wouldn't they need to have a site plan review?
No. Not if it's not if it's a residential thing, not if they're just going to, if they're doing a venue, adding that venue, that certainly should have
Right.
fallen under site plan review. That one,
it was explained in the letter.
Yep.
they should have come before us.
And they haven't. They haven't even made an attempt since you sent the
He knew
letter.
it was illegal. He knew his barn is illegal.
Oh, yeah.
He knew that DES would never sign off on this. That's why he got the permit through the town and ran with that
Yep.
without going back to DES.
But
So,
Because they would never have.
so at that point, so in other words, it's like he falsified the permit.
I can't speak for him, just saying that it's odd that he went to DES for his first barn permit, and then changed it, and didn't go back.
Never went back to have it updated.
yeah, then when you say DES, you're talking about the shoreline permit process, because
Yes,
he's in the
it's in the
shoreline.
shoreline protection, yeah.
Well, that might be a way to address these two issues, is that anything for future or even this situation, he has to submit a site plan, because it
He
is in
should have
that-
submitted a site plan.
Right, but it's in that, whoever it is on the lake, because of those restrictions, there are additional things than, say, I want to rent out the apartment in my house, which I can't do, but if I wanted to, don't have to get a permit for that per se right now. But because I'm not violating any setbacks, and it's already got the septic design for a 5-bedroom house, I could do that. Because it's already there. It's not something I'm adding, it's something's
Right.
already there. But in a situation where you're gonna tax your septic, even if it's within the means, you're still taxing your septic that's in the ground, that hasn't been updated since 1950, is gonna be
Well, if you.
more reviewable, more scrutinized, or should be.
Yep.
So in that aquifer district, or whatever you want to call it, it would suggest that it would need a site plan review regardless of whether it was a commercial or just a residential thing.
I disagree with that.
Okay?
If it's a residential thing, stay in residential. And if, all the only change is they want to rent out a room or the building, or they want to rent out 3 rooms, that's not something that, as it stands right now, would require a site plan. And I would be opposed to requiring site plan in that situation, because you're gonna have very similar situations that aren't maybe to the extreme you're thinking about, that you're gonna say, okay, you gotta come in for a site plan now because of that.
So maybe
But
maybe
what-
that could be addressed just in the application process for the permit to say, if you meet these additional qualifications or these additional issues, that would warrant a red flag to go up. You need a site plan because of this, this, and this.
Yeah, we'll have to
No, I've just,
discuss that, but I think a lot of it is gonna be taken care of by, the minute they wanna rent something out, they have to have an approved septic plan on file and in the ground, not just a plan
For the
done and
size.
never put it in. It has to be built.
right.
That's gonna catch a lot of it right there.
For the size of what they want to do.
Right.
Yeah. So you cannot have a, you
'Cause
can't have a
all the-
two-bedroom septic design and then they're putting four
Right.
or five bedrooms in there and then rent out the other
And
rooms.
95% of the lots are on the lake will only support a two-bedroom septic design.
Yeah, that's right.
When you reference
The room.
Airbnb, when you look up, because I looked out an Airbnb.com, the official website.
No,
There's,
two, Lake Forest Airbnbs.
okay, because there's only two legitimate
And you'll find, no,
Airbnbs
there's at least like
by the Airbnb
12 to
website
15 of
in
them,
where?
actually.
I had to
There's
go to
only
a
two
couple-
legitimate
I had to go to
ones?
a couple
Two-
different sites
And
when I
there's
found
like
them.
3 of them
That are using that-
the shore that are
Right.
offering offshore parking.
But I'm saying is that if we have to define our terms, because those are not Airbnbs, even though they're saying they are.
Should be
Well,
changed
Because-
to short-term
there's
rentals.
VRBO,
Right.
Yeah, there's short-term, there's VRBO site. there's
Right.
Which is,
Airbnb.
I don't wanna use any of those terms in whatever we do. It's gonna be short-term rentals. And actually, it's gonna be all rentals to non-family members. It's gonna be more than short-term rentals, after talking with the fire chief. But for long-term rentals, it's not gonna be a problem, because,
For my neighbor, everyone's his family, so.
yeah, it's, but it's gonna be rentals, it's gonna be residential rentals, period. Whether it's short-term, 1 day, 2 years, it's a residential rental, it's a residential rental.
Um,
And that's,
Let's get back to the code enforcement officer.
I'm,
Wouldn't-
I-
wouldn't
well,
my-
hold
wouldn't
on a
my
second, hold on a
complaint-
second. The code enforcement officer is out of our wheelhouse. You really need to go to the selectmen and talk to him about
You didn't let
that.
me finish.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Shouldn't that be the health inspector that we have on the payroll that wrote
We don't
that
have one of
letter?
those
You
either.
don't have one of those. That left at the same time with the,
I'm sorry. Sorry, I didn't know.
so that falls to the, we have to call somebody from the state.
So wouldn't that be more or less a health?
It will be.
So we gotta wait till the septic's running down the path into the water and it fails to get something done. Basically, that's
That's if you
what we're
catch it.
saying, right, basically?
In the
DES is-
situation the town's in right now, unfortunately, yes.
Yeah, unfortunately. I mean, this.
I know,
it's-
you don't have the manpower. I
Well, I
I
mean,
thought you had a health inspector. I'm
We're,
sorry.
you know, we're basically hamstrung because, our full-time land use, health officer, code enforcement, they all,
I didn't know that.
They all
I thought- I
left.
thought you still had a health.
so we turned around and now try to get this, and we've got,
Yeah,
you know,
you're well understaffed.
yeah,
I just thought, I didn't know the health inspector was gone too.
yep, unfortunately, yes. Well, we're kinda up
And-
against
And as
it.
I said before, DES has one enforcement officer for the entire state. He's spread pretty thin.
Yep,
She.
Kevin, Caveney?
Well, Jennifer's the one
Oh,
who keeps writing that.
Yeah, but she's shoreland.
Oh,
They got one for
Shoreland.
septic system and stuff. His name is Kevin,
Yeah.
Caveney.
Whole state.
Yeah,
Unbelievable.
yeah.
well, I know we get a copy of the letter to DES, to the resident, and they've also forwarded it to their legal counsel. A carbon copy went to DES legal counsel, so that's the first time I'd ever seen that happen, so I'm
They do
sure
that.
there's some seriousness going on there.
Most of the state departments now, each state agency has their own onboard attorney plus a member of the Attorney General's office in their offices, so. And I can tell you, at least most of the time, DES is not bashful about taking legal action. If they think
No.
there's a bad, they'll come after them on their
If
own.
they think they got a bad actor, if they, you know,
Yeah.
they
Keep getting
look at
complaints.
it and they keep getting complaints and they send this guy a letter and he doesn't do anything, they're not gonna take it sitting down.
They're not bashful. I,
It's good because it's been an absolute nightmare. I'm not saying that to be.
And they don't fine like the town of Ware fines. They fine in tens of thousands
yeah.
and hundreds
They
of
start-
thousands.
They start at 5, you know, they start with 4 numbers and then gradually get to 5, well, not gradually, very quickly can get up to 5 figures.
Well, we
Yeah.
saw how quickly cars got moved off the property, which is wonderful because now we don't have to stare at the parking lot anymore. But it has made it impossible for anyone to get out of there.
Yep.
I mean, like I said, as workers, like I said, private driveway, I can't just turn around in here. I said, no, it's stated that you can't. Well, I need to, you know, I can't, how am I supposed to get out? I said, then go down to the gentleman that you did work for and ask him to supply you a turnaround. It's not my problem. And the guy just peeled out, and then the other one like almost ran me over and went right into my yard on purpose because they can't get out. They've got it back all the way up a hill, around a curve, all the way up and out. That's the only way they can get. And you're talking like big trucks. Our driveway has been demolished, doesn't offer to pay for it, but blames us for his water runoff from tearing up the driveway, which we actually have more water runoff because of it, not him. He has it because he's taken out all of his trees down there. Yes, it's all gravel. He never had problems before, but I asked his irrigation man, and he said that wasn't his problem. After he came to apologize.
Have you invited him in for a site plan?
I told him he had to do a site plan, but
You haven't seen him though.
no.
And how many days has it been?
It's like she said, $17,000 worth,
Well, I guess
$250
should have sent him
a
a
day.
bill.
$275 a day.
I didn't know.
Huh, send him a bill. Turn around and say, this is what you owe us. And you,
But the frustrating part is,
Put a
he
lien
sent
on
me
it.
an email, said, oh, sorry, I knew, contact the town, I'll shut it down. And then,
he gets another
that's what he
permit.
said to me.
Yeah.
I'm sitting upstairs. They're the ones who have to call me again, because he blew smoke at me,
Yeah, that's it.
and I
But
wouldn't have
he's-
known any better, and
I mean,
that's,
can-
but I
the other-
truly understand,
guess
it's really not
outside
fair
of-
that somebody else has to keep
Outside of
watching,
this,
but
it's outside of this.
everybody, it happens all over.
I'm not sure what I'm dealing with
I'm
anymore.
outside of this board, it's probably outside of this board's like you said, his wheelhouse, so, I mean, if he's gone in and got one permit and then comes back and changes it again and changes it around, it's almost like he's falsifying the permits. If you can suspend the damn things, fine him for falsifying an official document.
I didn't fall, he just,
Well, he supposedly changed it, but he's doing the same thing, just
Didn't go back.
changing it. He just you know, as they used to say in the TV show, we change the names to protect the guilty, not protect the
Well, that's
innocent.
why we had our
Yeah.
lawyer address it, but right now they can't. Naomi has sent, our lawyer
Sounds
sent
like-
us a letter
sounds
that
like that
Naomi had
stopped
sent
from
saying that.
DES is done.
Yeah, so what we did is we copied the entire folder.
Yeah.
And it's gone to, it's not, I have to finish scanning it. It's gonna go to, I've sent their letter to our attorney. Our attorney's gonna get the whole building file along with a letter from DES and the stop work order, and then she'll talk to them. But basically, I mean, that three-page letter, he's got till September 17th to do step one, which is, you know,
Next week.
well, they want to know the engineer's name, phone number, and everything else that's doing plans for him. That was step one. And then a few weeks later, he's got to come up with, it's a long list of things. I just can't imagine how it's gonna work.
He'll probably just ignore it.
But I don't, short of taking things down, I don't know. How are you gonna restore things?
Yep.
There's buildings there. How are you gonna restore it to what it was before? Pre-vegetation.
Well, the building was approved, the footprint was approved
Just not the,
on the original a site plan with BES, but the way he moved it and shifted
Did
it,
it come
he
through
switched
here?
his doors, he changed the whole property.
Yeah.
Like, you're right, if he has to go by what, because my husband's an engineer, so that's how we figured it out, because he threatened to sue us for his water issues, so I take that seriously, especially when you're videotaping the driveway. So I came to the town and I went to Shoreland as well, and he was looking at it and he said, nah, this does not add up. So I said to Shoreland, what do I have to do? Because I don't know if he has a lawyer, I don't know if I'm being
Not-
sued.
yeah,
And she
yeah.
said, file a complaint. So we had to file a complaint with them, and we had to file a complaint with, because I came in because he's also looking to put a 10-foot deck
Mhm.
on this thing and a shed on the other side. And so I came in to see if he had a permit for that, he doesn't, so I said, what do I have to do? File a complaint, I did. So, yeah, I mean, I've done everything that I can possibly do as a resident. Like I said, we were friendly with her for, when I told her about the venue, I even asked her if I could go down and talk to him first as a neighbor. And, you know, he said, I didn't realize it was an illegal thing. He had to sign it for a year. I wasn't even aware. So when I, you know, approached him, yeah, I wasn't gonna take it down, so I asked him if he would go to he said he would go to the town. I gave him a month. We had my daughter's wedding, he had an open house scheduled for it. Went to a wedding expo for it. So I had to file a complaint to shut it down.
Well, I got some good ideas from our conversations. And I've got some things I think I need to discuss with some other town department heads and probably the town attorney on how to work a couple of the fine system in there or something.
I think the fine, I mean,
I think it's.
I think the fine system, I mean, the
It's pretty stiff
selectmen
as it
can
is.
create an ordinance.
Yeah, we can create.
Which I, after everything I've been reading
Doesn't have
and
to wait
and
till
hearing
town
about,
meeting.
I'm
Zoning
almost
goes
thinking
to
that may
town
be the way
meeting.
to go.
I think so too.
Well,
Yep,
that's,
I agree, and that, you know,
it's kind of, I made myself a note and circled it.
I mean, money stopped him. It immediately
Yeah.
got the venue down.
yep,
Granted, there's back doorway that seems to be popping up, but again, money seems to stop.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
I think even in his situation, you know, like I said, you don't wanna be a jerk and call just for the sake of calling, but if 3 strikes are out, and fined every single time, not just a strike, but you're also fined.
Right.
Because they're in it to make money, if they're not making money and they're being fined constantly, and neighbors are complaining about it, and
And their
then
their
they're
rent,
shut
and
down,
their
lose their license, their permit to do it.
renters, or whatever you call them, are causing them to get these
causing these issues.
points.
But they're also, like you said, in this letter, it has to be a limit on how many people you're allowing. If you,
The permit process, and the certificate, permit, whatever you want to call it, that process is going to address that.
and if you have 4 cars allowed in your driveway, that's it, 4
Right.
cars. You can't have 16 people showing up and parking all up the street, you know? That's an immediate call to the police and they're shut, you know, fined and done.
So, how does that work? Say, for instance, your neighbor is not doing this venue, and he's having a birthday party and forgets to tell you that he's having a birthday party, and he's got 30 family members coming from all over the kingdom come to his birthday party, and all these cars show up.
Carpool.
So, it's on him to approach you to tell you that, right? As
I would
opposed
say
to,
it's on him to call the police and notify them, hey, well, okay, here's a perfect example of that. There was a gentleman that lived up the street from us. He was hosting his daughter's wedding, wanted to put it in his backyard. He took the time to type up a letter and put it in every one of our mailboxes on the street and said, this is a one-time deal, our daughter's getting married in the backyard, we're gonna be super quiet, blah, blah, blah. If you have any issues, here's my cell phone number,
Right.
here's my house number, please address it with us. I thought that was very nice. We never even heard noise, we never even saw a car on the street. It was handled, I liked the way he did that. I thought that was very
Neighborly.
classy, very neighborly, you know, to address it and to avoid any problems, just to call them, you know.
And that's why I say it's a fine line. We don't want to
well, that's
prevent people from doing something like that.
correct, a one-time deal,
It
so
was a
that,
one-time- And he even said in the letter, it's a one-time deal, I'm not looking to do this, this is just my job, you know, and
So this, this goes back to my first planning board meeting where we talked about a sound ordinance or lack thereof.
That's,
And
don't bring up
I'm
that,
not gonna,
please.
no, but my point is that more often than not, we're not building relationship with people around us. We don't know who our neighbors are. We're not taking the time to spend any time with them or to investigate. When I first came to town as a pastor, one of the pastors got the selectmen and all the pastors together to sit down and talk. And Mr. McDonald was the chair at the time, and he said, I didn't even know my neighbor, and I lived there for 10 years until our kids were on the same team in sports. And so that's a sad testimony to how we're relating to people. It's, we have this fortress mentality that I'm in my own home, don't bother me type of thing, as opposed to taking the time, like this gentleman with the wedding, to inform and to let people know, especially on Winter Road where there's not a lot of people. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of houses, quote unquote, but it's not like going to Holly Hill where there's 30 houses, you know, type of thing. Or even East Shore Drive is not overpopulated. It's not the densest population in the town. But again, it comes back to relationships. So I'm thinking, as far as these side roads that we're parking on, go to my grandparents' camp. We had more cars than we knew what to do with every Sunday afternoon because that's what we did. But nobody complained because people knew our family had a gathering every Sunday afternoon so that they didn't park where we wanted to park. They parked in a different spot, and we were able to work out that relationally with everybody on the road. And so that's part of our, you know, we talk about the one bad apple that's causing a lot of the problems, which is precipitating this discussion.
That wasn't for profit,
No, but I'm just saying
though.
that,
Difference when you have a party and you're not charging people.
right,
When
so,
you're doing it for money, turns into a business.
correct.
I did what you said, I went
Yeah.
down and,
Mhm.
before
Yes.
I reported him, I did go down and try to have a conversation with them, let them know that we're not on board with this, we didn't move out here for this, it's not, you know, but I didn't, when I called her to find out what our legal responsibility was for this, that's when she informed me he's not even zoned for it and doesn't have a permit for it. I thought he did. So when I went down and I explained that, I think maybe he was a little up in arms that I knew it was illegal. But I still tried to be neighborly because you live on top of these people and you
Right.
don't, you know, we also have the access driveway. So, I mean, now it's, unfortunately, I did have to report it, and when we got back from the wedding, we haven't spoken since, it's been months, and it's just been ugly, and it's unfortunate, but he's mad at me for something that I didn't do wrong. I did everything I neighborly could do.
Right.
I didn't break the law.
So, again, as we suggested to John to come to the selectmen's meeting, that's what I would suggest to you, to do the same, because they're the code enforcers
At this point,
at this point.
At this point, yeah. And I think the thing to do is research, like you said, look at these other towns.
So can you,
Got these Airbnb ordinances, and we can draft something that will be suitable to us, and then bring it before the board, and maybe the board,
So
we
the-
can
the-
do it ourselves.
the fire chief sent an email to you and I and said that something about short-term rentals, and we should look at Conway, Laconia, and something else. But I tried to find,
Jackson.
Portsmouth.
Jackson?
Portsmouth,
Portsmouth has a totally different approach to this.
Yeah.
They've taken to not allowing Airbnbs in certain zones.
having the same problem.
And there was, you probably referencing a court case, I read that this afternoon to refresh my memory on it. But the town won the court case where someone was doing Airbnb in a zone that was not allowed to do Airbnbs. But they have zones where it's allowed, zones where it's not allowed. And that's,
The city of Portsmouth has got,
yeah, they're a lot denser than we are.
and they got a lot of employees and they have a lot of people in that section that can enforce this and keep an eye on it, whereas,
And I think part of the problem was, in this particular zone, parking was a big issue and noise, because they're very, a very dense spot, and there's only on-street parking, there's no driveways in that particular area, so they don't allow Airbnbs there. And in that situation, it's probably warranted, where there's absolutely no driveways at all, everything's on-street, and there's just no room for any additional load on the facilities. I don't think Ware is at that point. I'd really like to think that we can, they need to get the cars off the street. They need to be able to park on their land, not in the road, or not on the neighbor's land, or not, it has to be on their land. So that's gonna be absolutely part of their permit, that, okay, even if you're allowed to have 6 people, they can only have 2 cars, because that's all you can park on your property. So that's a whole thing that I have to figure out and work with the fire chief and the police to try to figure out how that's gonna work in this permit process. But we wanna address all of that, so it solves these problems, because I think it's all solvable without just restricting Airbnb completely.
Well, that's why I came up with the fines and.
Yeah, and fines help. I mean, fines speak. People understand when you're reaching in their wallet.
And having maybe the fire department go down and make sure they feel comfortable, like if they say they can park 10 cars, they go down there and say, I'm not comfortable, I don't see how. we
Right,
can
it's not gonna be,
down here."
we're not just gonna check off the box saying, oh, you say you can park 5 cars there? Okay, write down 5. That's not how it's gonna work.
they have somebody go and
That's why I
inspect
was
it.
suggesting that it needed to be a site plan review, because that's what we do.
And we don't wanna do, I don't wanna open it to that. That's gonna be an
mean, if you-
onerous type of thing, and I don't wanna do that. I don't think we need to do that.
I think if you get the permit part of it under an ordinance, and that somebody physically has to go out and look at it, to check it
And-
off, not come in
And
the
the fire
office.
department, they're set
check
up to
it
do
off.
that. They go out and look, they go to check for smoke detectors, they go to check to make sure there's egress in the bedrooms. So they can't put bedrooms in the basement, which,
So right
you know,
now in the
Unless you have
town
any-
center, you guys
exit.
don't have a list of all the Airbnbs.
no.
I just
But
looked,
this will create that list by doing this.
I just looked it up on, sitting here on my phone, and
You just do Lake Forest Airbnb.
I did Ware, Airbnbs and Ware.
And there's at least,
And some of them, it depends on what you're looking at, because Ware Vacation Rentals Homes, New Hampshire, and Ware Airbnb. Then it has Ware Reservoir Vacations and Rental Homes, Waterfront Cottage on Lake Horace Airbnb. I mean, Cozy Cabin on a Stunning Lake, houses for rent and Ware. Those are houses, but are they using it as,
see,
The-
like when we.
they have a whole list, and I didn't
Identify all
Yeah.
of them where they're at.
I didn't open them all up, but I mean, they've got a list of them already and where, and some of them are listing them as a house rental. Okay, if I have a house and I want to rent it, I don't think we should restrict somebody from renting their house. As long as they stay within the, what the,
Properties on the lake, I mean,
Yeah.
I would say at least,
Oh, recently, yeah, there's still a ton of them for
Yeah.
sale.
yep.
East Shore Drive's had a ton of turnover of people.
and I know that we were out in the boat the other day and Marine Patrol came up to us and they're having a heck of a time out there because, yeah.
Well, they've
they-
got-
all these people are just
They've got
resting, they
enough,
have
but
docks,
the
people
thing
come in
is
with jet skis,
they've only got so
and
much
it's
money,
getting
budget for so
dangerous
many
out there,
people.
to be honest.
And that comes under state police and they're spread thin, so I mean,
Yeah.
but the thing is, all of a sudden, they've gotten complaints, and that's why all of a sudden there's such a high presence on Lake Horace, because of the complaints they've received. Usually you used to see, over the years, you maybe see Marine Patrol out there twice,
Yeah,
3 times a year at the most, a season. I mean, they've been out there weekly.
yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of a cyclical thing too, in the
'Cause all of a
In the
sudden
early
they're getting
'90s, they were out there a lot too, because we were at a high,
high with complaints.
Yeah.
They get a lot of boating complaints, but now it seems
Yeah.
to go. And then there were times where they didn't have anybody, So it's-
you gave me, I think,
Well, thank you for
So
listening anyway. I
if
don't-
there's no abutter notification, is there gonna be a central location on the Ware site to
Well,
use
the-
Airbnb application?
I'll have to
and that's,
to see if we can look into that. But
Put it on the website or something, on the town website,
Yeah, somewhere easy.
a registry for it.
I don't know if I want to look for it. I know I won't.
I mean, if you, the only one that's gonna, the only people that are gonna look for them are the people that
People that want it.
live next to them or they're in the neighborhood, right?
Yeah. Like everything else, again, it's gonna come down to
Application, Bruce?
how, how much are we gonna be able to enforce with the
Notify
personnel we
your
have?
butters?
And right now, we don't. So, I mean, we've, asked for the health officer, we don't have a health officer, we don't have a certain,
There could be some spreadsheet somewhere on the website.
Right, like an
These
Excel
guys
sheet or
think-
something.
but they can't.
These guys have
They
applied.
can't by law, But yeah,
I mean, I don't
so
have to
I guess the
worry
thing to
about
do
it
is make
because
sure you
nobody
come out
lives next to me. Right.
first of the
But
year and we have
folks on the lake. probably-
deliberative sessions and voting.
February
to-
12th.
We,
But
we
things
vote
of
for
this
it.
nature, you guys are talking about making these violations that are enforceable by the. police
Yeah, the
department.
selectmen have the ability of creating ordinances on their own within certain parameters, I just have to check.
Yep.
And they can do it at their meetings, they still have to hold a public hearing, but it can be done Monday night versus waiting for March.
Yep.
To my knowledge, I will double check on
Yep,
that, but
and-
they can create ordinances.
Yeah, there's a the notification process, probably a 30-day notification period or something.
Right, we have to post a public hearing and we have to
Goes on the board.
Run it
put it on the
through
board.
and then open
but
up
it's
for a
not
In the
public hearing.
newspaper still.
But you
Run it
get
past-
more than one chance a year to do that. You gotta,
Yeah,
This is only one shot a year where the selectmen can tweak it and add and
and
I
if,
think that's
and
the
if
right
something
thing to
doesn't
do.
work out right, they could make adjustments to
have
it
another public
relatively
hearing,
quickly
change.
without having to wait till next year.
yeah. So that may be the other venue is get this put together and run it by town council or legal
Yeah.
council to make sure it fits in the proper parameters. And then,
Yeah, and our public
the public
hearing
hearing
is
and vote
posted
on
on our website. Did you guys e-subscribe? If you e-subscribe to the website, you go into e-subscribe, put your email in, brings up all that you want to know, and you check off what you want to be notified with, and then the minute we post something, you get an email. That's what we're trying to get people to e-subscribe.
Get the minutes twice.
and I'm not very computer savvy, but even I can get that. I've been getting it, so.
I think we signed you up, though.
Thank you for at least.
Yeah, thanks for coming down. I mean,
Yeah.
we don't
appreciate
very
it.
often get public input, so it's good to have
No,
some
we
public
invited
input.
them.
And,
We're
and,
convenient,
and
Adam.
it's not that it's falling on deaf ears or, but as they say, the wheels kind of grind a little slowly, and I understand it, and I feel for it, and I wish we could, snap our fingers and do it, but it's,
frustrating because everything
it's
that
frustrating.
was complaining about was done illegally down there,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
nothing's going, it's frustrating,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Un-
To know that,
But you got a bump in the road right now. At least it's preemptive. He's got to live every day.
yeah.
You got a nuisance right now.
Yeah.
I didn't realize it was so short-staffed.
Oh, yeah. In an office that had, 3 people is not now?
What?
Before, at one point, there was like
Well,
3
there was
people doing this.
5.
5,
Now there's 2.
yeah.
but like I said, for that one thing, if, I'm not sure, like Wendy in the building department, if she's aware of which, houses would have to deal with, shoreland as well. Like I said, before they give a permit, just make it a pending permit, so that they can't do anything with it. They have to go to DES, and, like, that would have stopped from what he did. He would have had to go, it would have just been pending DES's approval. He gets that.
I always
comes
thought
back
within
and-
so many feet of the lake you had to. I'm
They
sorry,
thought they
but
did. I thought-
250
would've-
feet.
250 feet, but somebody should have pulled a reference point, I'm just saying, from the water to this building, and then they would have had to supply a certified plot plan type of a thing.
I think that's something we could address in the, in our building code, our building ordinance,
Yeah.
because we have a building ordinance that says anything in the shoreline zone, the permit will not be issued until we have the shoreline permit from DES. Just like not being able to build a house until you get the septic permit from DES.
Or revised.
Or a subdivision approval has to have state
Yeah.
subdivision approval.
I
Yeah.
mean, we could certainly, I think, apply the same logic to
I don't see why
anything in
you
the shoreline
couldn't.
zone.
And I think it would be fine.
Sure.
Yeah.
So, we'll make that note.
That was just a suggestion.
No, that's a good,
That's a good, that's a good,
suggestion.
good suggestion, gives us another avenue.
It's not like we're
People
not,
are fully aware of what they're doing sometimes.
it's not like other parts of the state rules aren't being to that same, held to that same regard, so. Just,
Frustrating.
All the way around.
well, thanks, guys.
Thank you very much, we appreciate the input.
Yeah. You're welcome to stay if you want, but,
We're just gonna do minutes, right?
There's nothing else.
Yeah, there's nothing else,
Can I
right?
Approval of minutes?
throw a statement for your last phrase here on the bottom?
sure.
Residential rentals shall be permitted in all zones where residential uses are allowed with an approved annual registration permit or something to that effect.
Yeah, that's just like a worksheet on.
I know,
on
I'm just
what the-
throwing that out as a worksheet suggestion.
Let me,
It's a good idea.
Because that way the way it reads
residential
right
shall
now,
be
this
permitted in all
doesn't.
zones or,
With an approved annual registration.
with, yeah.
And fire.
Well, we haven't determined what the annual registration, but you
Yeah.
can,
Yeah,
you
Annual
can define
registration.
what the
that.
fee would
Sure.
be and
And the
Yeah.
fee and
what's
everything else, right?
required and
Yeah.
what triggers something different.
Yep.
If DES says they have to put a new septic system in,
Well, see, here's a problem.
You may,
And this is a, and this isn't just a Ware problem, this is a problem across the board. And it applies, a lot of, it particularly applies when somebody, this is ADUs, the in-law apartments. Somebody comes in to get a building permit for an in-law apartment. And the building inspector says, well, you need a septic design first. So they get a septic design done for this, building a whole new septic system to include the in-law apartment too. And then the building inspector says, but I'm not gonna make you put it in until you have a problem with your existing system. Which is what 90% of the towns in New Hampshire do.
DES does too.
No, they don't.
I could've sworn that's what it said in the letter said.
Not anymore.
Okay,
They've changed their tune a couple years ago.
okay, well, the DES, the letter from Jen says that. If you wanna add a bedroom, you have to have a design, and the design
Well,
is put
but
in.
she's shoreline, she's not,
Okay, I'm
I'll
just
have to,
saying.
I'll have to get her straightened out with Bob Tardif, because
Okay,
subsurface wants them in.
okay, well, that's not, honestly, it alluded to the old way.
Yeah.
so what happens is that.
Because what
they're
happens,
just
what's been happening
Kicking it down
is,
the road till it fails, and then
Yeah.
at that point,
and somebody buys a house, and this is what's been happening. They nurse this septic system along, it's failed, but they won't admit it's failed.
Right.
And somebody, unsuspecting buyer buys the house this year with
without
no
inspection,
inspections, and they got a failed septic system. And now, that permit that they applied for that they got was 8 years ago.
It's not any good anymore.
It's not any good anymore. And
So they gotta go through it
they've
all.
put other additions on the house, or put a pool or something over where that septic system was supposed to go.
Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying. I think they all, I think, but there,
Oh,
that is in there,
the
though.
other issue is too, is that with that, like you said, oh yeah, I'm gonna put in an in-law apartment, or I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna add another bedroom or two. They don't have enough land to add on it, make a system big enough to do it, they don't have the area, so then, that's the other thing, so if they just apply for it, doesn't mean,
Yeah, so,
so they'll build it anyway, and then,
So
then
that's-
it's built for a two-bedroom, and you're putting a four-bedroom in there, and the next thing you know, you've upped the ante.
but that's why with these places that are doing the Airbnbs that don't have an approved a plan and the construction approval, we're not, they just don't have to get the plan done, they have to put it in.
I think we,
But you
and I
know
think we
what?
should do that.
it-
Make sure that it does get done that
Yeah.
way. So we're not, like you said, they're down there at the lake, you have a failed system, and everything's running down the,
Into the water.
it's not the water runoff, it's the gray water runoff coming out of the leach field because it's failed, and it's
Yeah.
coming down the driveway, or coming down from wherever into the lake. So, I mean, and like you said, some people will just turn around and kind of kick a little dirt over and go, oh, it's nothing, and keep going that way.
This is, I'm not making this up. Guy calls me up last week. We gotta go talk to my neighbor, he needs a new, this is an installer. We need to go talk to my neighbor, he needs to get a new septic design done. We gotta put a system in there. And so I called him up the other day, when are we gonna do that? He decided he doesn't have the money to do it. But yesterday I saw him out there with a tractor with a post hole digger on the back of it, drilling holes in his septic system.
To vent it.
Yeah,
The stone system.
yeah.
But it really seems, because as I'm sitting here listening to this tonight, we can come up with all the ordinances, rules, regulations, you know, because when I think about like an Airbnb or whatever, and my wife's sister rents a place up in York, Maine, right? And they have a very limited, you know, 4-bedroom place, and they say this is how many people can show up, and I think they've kicked people out, because, you know, like this gentleman here says there's 16 people. Well, 16 people go out on a deck that's rated for
Right.
5 people, and the deck falls apart, but.
Which is what this annual permit, which is my intention, that would take care of that.
Exactly, that things like that should be, and then the owner should be required no more than
Yep.
whatever. But it seems like the biggest problem is, how do you enforce all that?
That's right.
That's right.
That's where I mean, we could pass all the ordinances, it's like, you know, anything else. You pass all the ordinances or regulations in the world, but if you don't have the manpower to go and enforce it,
Well,
it's-
and it's
it isn't
like
worth the paper it's written on.
ordinance 18 whatever
Yep.
says, no on-street parking,
Right.
Yeah.
right? Well, this guy's saying there's 16 cars parked on the street and the police won't come.
That is a fault of the police. If they're parked in the street and they don't go, then the selectmen can
Yep,
get on them.
there's a state statute that says that if you leave a vehicle parked in the right of way or on the, you know, in the roadway, that, you know, especially if it's in the evening, it will be lit. You know, that's the other part of it, so, I mean,
Well, it sounds like we could pay for a code enforcement officer if they'd start issuing parking tickets, right?
They go to Goffstown.
Do what?
Parking tickets go to Goffstown District Court.
yeah, but, you know, but the funny thing with town ordinances, if it's a town ordinance, the fine money's supposed to come back to the town that issued it, and it doesn't.
Well,
So, another note on page 15 of our site plan review regs, we need to add after B and B, short-term rental. So it's a clarification. Otherwise, well, it's not a B and B. That,
Well,
if
I
they're
don't,
not providing
that's why I
breakfast.
don't wanna call it, I'm not gonna call it anything of those Airbnb, it's gonna be short-term rental, period. And and we're just
Right,
gonna
well, that's what
define
I'm just
short-term
saying. It
rental.
says hotel, motel, lodging house, or B and B.
Bed and
That's what it
breakfast.
falls under.
Yeah, that's not, that's like a bed and breakfast,
Right,
that's
but
it.
there's no reference to short-term rental.
Right.
Unless you
have to
use
put that in there.
residential, single-family as that.
Yeah, but see, but that site plan, I mean, I gotta look at the site plan, what you're referring to. I mean, the context.
Because
of-
you made a table off-street parking reference here, so that's
Yeah.
why I looked it up
But,
to
but
see.
that, but those would be located in a,
In the zone,
in
those
a
are.
zone
those are
for a
zoned
business,
items.
not for a residential.
Right.
So a B and B is bed and breakfast,
That
which it
B&B is
still
not-
have to
that's
file,
not- That's like a bed and breakfast.
Right,
like
right.
it still has to file for certain things as far as, you know,
So
like a
you'd
hotel.
use the residential, single-family thing, it's two spaces per dwelling
Yeah,
unit.
2 spaces
So
per
that's,
dwelling.
there's only one dwelling unit on that property.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's only 2 spaces to park there. He
Right.
can't park more than 2 cars.
Well, he has to park at least 2 cars. He can park more, but there
Oh,
has
that's
to be a
true,
minimum
yeah.
of 2.
Right.
But,
I was gonna say.
but that's what the permit process is gonna straighten out. How many cars can actually fit there?
Right.
And the fire chief is on board with
And as well, they should be,
being the one to
kind of,
oversee the permit process.
which I think they should, because
No, he is.
it's a
He
life,
said that.
it's, yeah, he should, and I'm glad he is,
He
because it's a
talks
life
about
safety
carbon
issue.
monoxide,
Yeah, CO2 detectors.
fire detectors,
Emergency egress,
yeah.
you know, what if you gotta,
Yeah,
you
you
can't have a
gotta-
bed
you
in that
gotta-
room, it
you gotta
doesn't
be
meet
upstairs
egress
in that-
requirements.
So-called barn office area, and you have, you know,
You
a
don't have
fire.
you don't have a window this size to get out.
No, or it's 30 feet off the ground. I mean,
Yeah.
you wanna do, dive out
The other
that,
thing that
supposed to have another egress.
I'm thankful that in this document you developed It's not talking about bathrooms,
No.
because everybody thinks that
Bathrooms
you can
are,
have 20 bathrooms, it doesn't matter. You
Right.
got 2 bedrooms.
Yeah.
That's what it goes by.
Yeah.
Not the number of bathrooms. And that's what, you know, I didn't want to say that to her when,
about the bathrooms in the garage.
yeah. You can
The
have a
point of the
bathroom
bathrooms in the garage, I think, was she was getting to the point, and that, do we have an assembly permit? I mean, do they rate things for assembly? Like, this building is rated, this room can have so many people in it.
Yes.
Yeah, they do. The fire department has, like, he has, the
But like
fire
that garage,
chief.
if he's doing
Yep.
functions there.
Yeah, he said how many people, it's like here.
has to be
There's a
rated,
permit for
right?
this
Has
room.
certification for that.
Yeah.
It was taken off the wall when it was painted, and
Yeah,
that's
but
been
there's a
while.
permit for this room that's issued annually that says
How many people?
how many people can be in, like the
But it
schools.
was taken down with COVID.
Yeah, let's go when they're painted, but, yeah, and it's, the town or the state issues those,
Yeah.
state fire marshals.
But, and I think the fire chief was thinking, he'd like to issue the same type of
Yeah.
certificate for these places.
Right, you know, if you had a hotel that had a dance hall in it, you know, or a bar that had you have a certificate, part of your certificate of occupancy is how many people you can have in that establishment during hours.
Right.
I mean, they've got them for,
All the restaurants have them.
all the restaurants, yeah,
Church has them.
as long as the.
Anything with
and
it,
if- and if
people can
the-
assemble, right?
Yep, and if they're,
Yeah, I have to use that number that we have been assigned to give my 50%
Yep.
capacity when we're restricted.
that's right,
Make a motion, we accept the minutes.
second.
I wasn't here, so I'm gonna abstain.
I wasn't
All in
here either.
favor?
Aye,
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
one.
Abstain.
Me too.
Ray abstains.
202.
Yeah.
Oh,
Move we adjourn.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
He beat you to it.
Hey, Bill.